But now we have a plaque here in this very hall. Really recognizes the labor of those folks. And today, indeed, the 6.888 Battalion were these unsung heroes who served their country. And they did it because they were patriotic, not because they thought that they would ever get any recognition. And now, 80 years later, after they were deployed to Europe, this ceremony is a fitting end to a long journey to make sure that we do not forget their service. And none of them did it for glory. They did it for the love of country. And the story reminds us so much that while there's much that divides our country today, there's even more that joins us together. And like a commitment to service, a commitment to doing something bigger than yourself, to live voluntarily, to go into service in a war zone, even in the face of segregation at home. We want to thank the women of the 6.888 from all over the nation, the 855 women who served for their service. They're women like my constituent who is still alive, a young 101 years old, Private Anna Mae Robertson of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I first got to know Anna Mae Robertson because she's the mother of a friend of mine that I went to college with, and she's also a constituent. And my office was contacted to look for some of the service medals that they thought she most certainly deserved. And as I got these service medals, I realized what a tremendous, remarkable, and unknown story the 6.888 was. And that history lived right there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as I worked to prepare these remarks, I had to think further about how this evolved. Her daughter, Cherie Robertson, very dear friend of mine, wrote me a letter, and I'm quoting from Cherie's letter. Quote, "By sponsoring the bill for the Congressional Gold Medal, you will be ensuring that the contributions and sacrifices made by the women who served in the 6.888 Central Postal Battalion will not go unnoticed and will be appreciated by future generations." Unquote. And you've heard about the obstacles that these barriers, cold, freezing weather, rats, but they put duty first. And in the days before cell phones, emails, text, Instagram, you could only imagine how important getting a letter from home was, and as it sustained our young men in the theater of war. I want to quote from an obituary that appeared in the Niagara Gazette, May 21st, 2021, of the 6.888. Their work was more than sorting mail. It was ministering to the souls of soldiers, making sure they received that little piece of home that reminded them that they were not forgotten. Ergo, the motto, no mail, low morale. And as I hurry to a close, I want to thank Representative Jake LaTurner. I remember when I tracked you down in the Republican cloakroom to be my co-sponsor. I remember dogging all of the generals in the House, cussing, "You better damn well help me get some signatures." Senator Jerry Moran, and of course my good friend, Senator Jackie Rosen, for spearheading this legislation in the Senate. And I also would be remiss if I didn't mention a person who helped me write these remarks and didn't put his name in here, my legislative director, Chris Golson, who was dogged about getting the signatures. It took us 7 years to get this done. And of course, you're going to hear from amazing people like retired Army Colonel Edna Cummings and Carlton Philpott, and many others that I can't name, who picked up the phone to make calls and send emails to get us to this point. As one reporter noted in one of the many stories about these remarkable women, quote, "The 688 was an experiment, a pass-fail test to determine the value Black women brought to the military." And let me say, today, all of us bear witness to their impeccable, remarkable performance, their commitment to freedom, and that's why we're able to gather here today in Emancipation Hall, to celebrate their legacy. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Jackie Rosen, United States Senator from Nevada.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Mr. Speaker, the leaders, senators, my dear friend Gwen Moore, you have motivated us to do all of this. My friends in Congress, members of the military, families and friends, and for those watching, the few survivors who are watching us today, thank you, thank you, thank you, because we are thrilled to be here, all of us together, to celebrate the incredible women of the 688. And these brave women, over 800 strong, made up the only all-Black, all-woman unit deployed overseas during World War II, and that should be applauded. Again, to Congresswoman Moore, and I'm proud to work with Senator Moran, our partners all across both houses, to make sure that the 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion got the recognition that they truly and rightfully deserve with the Congressional Gold Medal, Congress's highest civilian honor. I got involved with these efforts, these heroes, especially because of the women who called my state of Nevada home. Women like Corporal Mabel Nevels, women like Corporal Alberta Bradley, and women like Corporal Lena King, who later in her life came to call Nevada home. That's right. And it was Corporal King's story that motivated me to make sure that these heroic women got the recognition that they deserved. And even though she is no longer with us, she is with us in spirit. Her heroism remains, her spirit and her legacy intact. All of these trailblazing women, they not only answered the call to serve their country, but they did so in the face of incredible challenges of the time, like racism and sexism. And their mission sounds like a simple one, just to deliver the mail, right? But to distribute mail and clear a massive backlog of 17 million letters and packages, it was a tremendous feat, and it was critical. It was critical. This mail was the only connection that our troops had to home, that they had to family. It was their light in the darkness and the loneliness of war. So for the heroes that were risking their lives on the front line, this mail, the mail that they so carefully worked 24 hours a day to figure out where it went and who it went to, they knew it would bring them joy, it would bring them hope, and it would bring them their humanity. And despite the many challenges, the women of the 688 cleared that backlog in half the time expected. Their speed, their precision, their dedication remained true to their motto as expressed by Corporal King: no mail, low morale. For decades, their service went largely unrecognized, hidden in the margins of history, and that changes today. Today, they are no longer hidden. We stand up for the 68888. And let this medal, at this time, in this place, Emancipation Hall, and this moment, stand as a permanent reminder that courage knows no color, that strength knows no gender, and patriotism knows no bounds. So on behalf of a grateful nation, to the families, the descendants, the friends, and the loved ones, the women of 68888, we thank you for your service, and we are so proud to honor you here today. You have our eternal gratitude. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Jerry Moran, United States Senator from Kansas.
Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, congressional leaders, Representative LaTurner and Representative Gwen Moore, and my colleague from the Senate, Senator Jackie Rosen. It is a privilege of a lifetime to stand in front of you today to pay tribute and respect to the women of the 68888. The World War II heroes we recognize today were freedom fighters who set aside the safety and comfort of their home to deploy to Europe to support and fight tyranny, to support freedom, which they didn't always experience in their own country. These women came from all over our nation. They came from all walks of life. I suppose in many ways we'd say they were just average Americans. But these average Americans were something more than just average. At every time, in every generation, we need role models. We need role models today. We can only strive and hope that we can earn in our own lifetime the respect that these women earned and deserve in their lifetimes. The women of the Army Corps Central Postal Directory Battalion, as we now are certain we know, the women of the 68888, are soldiers who went above and beyond their duty. They broke barriers that should never have existed and defied odds that were stacked against them. Their commitment and determined efforts to eliminate a backlog of mail touched the lives of millions of American soldiers and their families at home. For American soldiers on the front line, messages from home, they provided comfort and a reminder for the people back home that they were fighting for. For the families back home, the letters gave them comfort and a level of certainty that their loved ones were alive and maybe well. Written words of encouragement, love, and hope offered glimpses of what life could be like when they returned home. What all of us want in our life, at most times in our life, is hope. And letters from home provided hope. Hope to return to life of love and family. Tucked away in pockets of soldiers, the letters from home gave them the strength to push forward to achieve their mission. The 68888 is especially important to me as the son of a World War II veteran who left his new bride in Emporia, Kansas, to fight in Europe. I don't know if any of the letters between my mom and dad passed through the hands of the 68888, but I do know that the work they did made it possible for millions of young men like my dad to keep up the fight. When these women returned home, there was no parade to greet them. No one lined the streets to thank them for their service. That ain't right, and we're trying to correct it today. Many returned to their daily lives only with the stories of their service in World War II. In 2018, I had the honor to meet 5 of these exceptional women, including Dolores Ruddock, and at the dedication of the ceremony of the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion Monument at the Buffalo Soldier Memorial Park in Leavenworth, Kansas. A day I will never forget, and a day that caused me to think, what more could we do to show our gratitude? Those ladies that I met, all in their 90s, these 5 women that came to Fort Leavenworth, they braved our Kansas winter to see a memorial built in their honor. 3 years later, I attended the funeral of Dolores, and I'm grateful she lived to see the memorial in Kansas built to her honor, and I regret she didn't live to see today's ceremony. I'm grateful I could introduce the Congressional Gold Medal Act. I introduced it in the Senate to bestow this honor upon the 6888, and I'm saddened that we weren't able to express our gratitude more quickly to the women while they were still living. You know, I indicated that Dolores was able to see a monument built in her honor. Shortly before the World War II memorial was to be dedicated, I put on my running shoes and walked to the World War II memorial. And when I got there, I arrived and looked for the Kansas pillar. And I stepped away and used my flip phone to call my dad at home in Plainville, Kansas. And I was lucky because the voicemail, the answering machine picked up. I probably wouldn't have said what I said on the voicemail on the answering machine if he'd answered the phone himself. But I said, Dad, I'm at the World War II memorial. Dad, this memorial was built in your honor. Dad, I want you to know that I respect you. I thank you for your service. And Dad, I love you. I walked back to my office and my phone rang. It was my dad. And he said, Gerald? And I said, Dad? He said, you left me a message, but I couldn't understand it. Would you repeat it? I'm no longer able to repeat that message to my own dad. But I've tried in my time as a member of the House of Representatives and as a United States Senator to honor, respect, and meet our obligations to those who served our nation. To Fannie McClendon and Anna Mae Robertson, who represent really 850 women who served along their side on behalf of a grateful nation. This nation needs to learn to be grateful, but to be on behalf of a grateful nation and on behalf of my mom and dad, I thank you for your service, I respect you, and I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army Band Pershing Zone Brass Quintet performing Song of the Women's Army Corps.
Every day brings a challenge our way. No matter what.
ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic Leader of the United States House of Representatives.
Good afternoon. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. To Colonel Edna W. Cummings, Mr. Stanley Early III, Mrs. Judith Early, Dr. Murphy, the families of our heroes, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, Leader Schumer, members of Congress, certainly to Congresswoman Gwen Moore, Congressman Jake LaTurner, Senator Rosen, Senator Moran, and all those assembled. It's a high honor and a distinct privilege to join you all today as we recognize the extraordinary women and the extraordinary accomplishments of the 688. In 1945, the 855 members of the 688, the largest group of black women to serve overseas during World War II, deployed to Europe during one of the most difficult periods in American history. Led by Lieutenant Colonel Charity Adams Early, the daughter of a preacher, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I figured that would generate some type of reaction. And the highest ranking black woman officer at the time. These fiercely passionate, patriotic, and persistent members of the Women's Army Corps deployed knowing that they would confront the dual challenges of racism and sexism at the hands of their own military and beyond. Lieutenant Colonel Early once stated, "When I talk to students, they say, 'How did it feel to know you were making history?' And then she responded, 'But you don't know you're making history when it's happened.' I just wanted to do my job." And what a job well done by the 688. They were given 6 months to do what others could not. In a war zone, with bombs dropping above and horrific warehouse conditions. But with their life-saving and life-sustaining battle cry of "No mail, low morale," that's M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E. Don't want anybody to get it twisted. No mail, low morale. They defied the odds and cleared millions of pieces of mail and years of backlog in only 3 months, record time. Record time. We gather today to salute these mighty veterans. We salute the ingenuity with which they sprang into battle. We salute the barriers that they broke in a system designed to push them aside. We salute their trailblazing spirit and the road that they paved for others. We especially honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, including Private First Class Mary Bankston from New York. Mary was killed in a vehicle accident along with 2 other members of the unit when the War Department wouldn't provide funds for their burial. The heroes of the 688 took up a collection to pay for their caskets and themselves laid their sisters to rest. That's the spirit, the soulfulness, the sisterhood of the 688. We reject any efforts now to erase this history, and that is why this bipartisan ceremony is so particularly important. The women of the 688 overcame the odds, disproved the doubters, and courageously contributed to the Allied victory in World War II. Their efforts helped freedom prevail over fascism, and that is why they are so worthy to be praised. We are forever indebted to them for their honorable service, and as a result of this gold medal ceremony, we forever will ensure that they will never, ever be hidden figures again. God bless you. God bless the 688. May God continue to bless the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Charles E. Schumer, Democratic Leader of the United States Senate.
To Mr. Stanley Early, Colonel Edna Cummings, my colleagues in the Senate and the House, to Senators Moran and Rosen, Congress members Moore and LaTurner, but most of all, the relatives, friends, supporters of the great and now properly remembered 688. From 1943 to 1945, 2,000 acres of once quiet New York farmland operated as the busiest military embarkation camp in the world. Nearly 1.3 million soldiers passed through Camp Shanks before crossing the Atlantic to join the war in Europe, including the women of the 688 Central Postal Directory, the only black all-female unit to serve abroad in all of World War II. Today, we honor the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor bestowed by Congress to the trailblazing women of the 688. And by now, we all know the stories of their heroics, their great heroics. How they sorted millions of pieces of mail in record time, making sure soldiers received their letters and packages from back home. But also how they overcame doubt and discrimination to get the job done, how they lifted the morale of an entire army fighting for freedom. But before they could do any of this, they had to fight for even the opportunity to serve. At the time, black women had just recently been granted the ability to join the Women's Army Corps. Those who did were forced to train in harsh conditions, to live in segregated barracks, and were routinely assigned menial tasks like janitorial duties. Still, they persisted. They showed up every single day with dignity, discipline, and a dogged determination to serve. And when the opportunity finally came for the women of the 688, they answered the call and changed the course of history. They took on a mission that many others deemed impossible. They carried the weight of an entire army on their shoulders, and they illustrated that American heroes come from all walks of life, regardless of gender, regardless of race. So today, with this long overdue award, the 688 will take their rightful place in the pantheon of America's greatest wartime heroes. Their legacy, once overlooked, will now endure for generations to come. So God bless the 888, the 6888. God bless our women and men in uniform, and God bless the United States of America. This is a great day for our country.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Jack Thune, Majority Leader of the United States Senate.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, Leader Schumer, Senators Moran and Rosen, Congressman Letourneau, Congressman Moore. No male, low morale. As has already been said, it was the motto of the 6888. For my dad and the millions of other Americans who served overseas during World War II, there were no emails, no FaceTimes, no Zooms, no phone calls. My Uncle Gib was at Pearl Harbor when it was hit on December 7th, 1941, and my grandparents didn't know for days whether he was alive or dead. Letters were the only connection to home. In the absence of those letters, that was a real blow to soldiers already facing constant strain and danger. In early 1945, the mail situation was a big problem. Warehouses in Birmingham, England were filled with a backlog of 17 million pieces of mail. It was estimated that clearing that backlog would take 6 months. Enter the 6888. The women of the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion, the only all-black and women of color Women's Army Corps unit to serve overseas during World War II, arrived in Birmingham in February, and boy, did they get to work. And despite often dismal working conditions and practical challenges, there were, for example, 7,500 Americans named Robert Smith. Within 3 months, they had cleared the backlog. 3 months. Half the time estimated for the task. A story of professionalism and excellence and determination worthy of being remembered all on its own. But there's more to it than that. Because these women accomplished their task in the face of challenges no battalion of white men, or even white women for that matter, would have had to face. In addition to the ordinary trials of their service, they faced racism, segregation, hostility, and prejudice. But they did their jobs anyway. And for these trailblazing women and their exceptional commander, Major Charity Adams, deserve to be doubly remembered. It is an honor to be here today to witness the 6888 receive this recognition. And I hope that this medal and this presentation today will bring additional attention to their historic story. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Mike Johnson, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
All right, so the moment we've all been waiting for. As we've heard today, the story of the 6888 has been buried in American history for quite some time. But we are grateful for the many descendants, historians, and advocates with us today who helped bring the legacy of this storied unit to light. Just last week, I was back home in Louisiana, and while I was there, I had the honor of meeting the oldest living World War II veteran. He lives in my district there. He just turned 106 years old. Yeah. He's sharp as a tack, and I asked him for his vitamin regimen, but that's another story. We gave him a Congressional Commendation Award, and it was the very least that I could do. I felt inadequate, but just giving him the certificate. But what we do today is so appropriate. I was reminded then, as I am now, that with each passing day, we are slowly losing our ties to this great generation of men and women. It is our responsibility and solemn duty as citizens to preserve this heritage, to ensure the heroism and bravery of our greatest generation are never forgotten. And it is a biblical admonition that all of us must give honor where honor is due. That's what we do today. So for their distinguished service, I am proud our nation is finally giving the women of the 688 the recognition they've long deserved. Today is our way of saying in no uncertain terms that their story will never be forgotten. And so, on behalf of a grateful nation, it is my honor to present the Congressional Gold Medal to this 688. At this time, I will ask Leader Thune, Leader Schumer, Leader Jeffries, Senator Moran, Senator Rosen, Representative Moore, Representative LaTurner, Colonel Edna Cummings, and Mr. Stanley Early III, and Ms. Judith Early to please join me here in the front of the stage for the presentation of the medals.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stanley Early III, son of Lieutenant Colonel Charity Adams Early.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, sponsors of the bill, families of the 688, and all of the guests here. On behalf of the friends and families and all those connected with the 688, I wish to give my most sincere thanks to the Congress of the United States for this great honor to the women of the battalion. I wanted to say a couple brief remarks. While representation is important, it is important after excellence. And I have, and I'm more of a math person than a word person. I think a few of you know me, and that's kind of true. And we've talked about, people have talked about what the 688 did, and I'm going to talk a little more about the numbers. The 17 million pieces of mail, the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and in 90 days. But if you do that, and you multiply it, or rather divide it, you wind up with one letter or package going out on average every 4/10 of a second for 90 days. No computers, no optical scanners, no sorting machines, all done by hand. These soldiers exemplified determination in the face of adversity and demonstrated the ability to go beyond what was thought to be possible. They overcame major obstacles to achieve success and made a substantial difference to the Army. They serve as an inspiring role model for young soldiers entering service today, and they're true examples of American excellence. The Congressional Gold Medal has reinforced the principle that those who dedicate themselves fully, regardless of race or gender, can be recognized at the highest levels, and above all, that excellence matters. Finally, I do have a request. Please help us to ensure that the story of the 688 and the honors and the recognition that they receive are protected and remembered for future generations. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Edna W. Cummings, United States Army retired and author of A Soldier's Life, A Black Woman's Rise from the Army Brackets 666-8 champion.
Thank y'all. Okay. Please be seated. Thank you. Oh my gosh, how exciting. Mr. Speaker, our Senate and House co-sponsors, members of Congress, families, distinguished guests, I am more than honored to be with you today to present the 688 with our nation's highest civilian award, the long-awaited, much sought-after Congressional Gold Medal. Yeah. And the 688 is now listed among the less than 200 recipients since General George Washington first received it in 1776. 8 decades after the 688 returned from the war, we now commend these soldiers who did 4 things. They exceeded performance standards, succeeded when others failed, restored reliable mail service, and connected loved ones to the front lines. So it was more than the mail. And more importantly, World War II was a time when the entire nation came together to defend America. I would really like to acknowledge First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, because Dr. Bethune was also an honorary general in the Women's Army for National Defense. Together, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt opened a path for service and encouraged women to serve our nation. And as a result, hundreds of thousands of women answered their call, including the 688. Women of all races throughout the U.S., throughout our territories, answered the nation's call to defend America. With 85% of the 688 having college degrees or working as former school teachers, the 688 were among the nation's most educated workforce. Armed with education and patriotism, they gave their all and returned from the war and to their lives without fanfare. Many said that they did their jobs and came home, and the ones I talked to told me, "Colonel, end of story." But I wouldn't accept that as the end of the story. And for most, that chapter of their lives did end, but until recent years, their story and impacts were seldom, if ever, told. And now, due to the tenacity of families and hundreds of supporters worldwide, the 688's history is known internationally. To date, the Congressional Gold Medal, 2 post offices, museum exhibits, countless state and local resolutions, commemorative days, documentaries, street dedications in the U.S. and in France, blue plaques in the United Kingdom, a movie, books, and articles now cement the legacy of this remarkable military unit. Thank you. And the 688 not only restored vital communication, but this history has now restored the passion for service, as evidenced by young girls who now dress up as members of the 6888. But to members of Congress and your staff, I appreciate your hard work. You've answered my phone calls now for over 7 years. But your hard work has resulted in us bestowing this honor upon the 6888. And I would like to offer the families a special thank you for sharing their personal stories, and to our supporters and veterans organizations worldwide who donated your time and resources to make today and many others possible. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Sylvia Schuster Banks. She's the 95-year-old sister of 6888 veteran Gladys Schuster Carter. And we have some guests from the United Kingdom. Raise your hand. Who joined with us today. And a few Montfort Marines. So in closing, I'd just like to say, with my utmost respect, appreciation, and humility, please know that everyone in here, all of you, helped shape the enduring legacy of the 6888. Thank you so very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the benediction delivered by Dr. Barry C. Black, Chaplain of the United States Senate.
Let us pray. Eternal Lord God, who holds the world in your hands, thank you for this Congressional Gold Medal that honors the 6888. Thank you that the 6888 validates for us the words of the poet, fleecy locks and dark complexion cannot forfeit nature's claims. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. Were I so tall as to reach the pole, or to grasp the ocean at a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the woman and man. Now bless and keep us. Make your face shine upon us and be gracious to us. Lift the light of your countenance upon us, and give us your shalom, your peace. We pray in your sovereign name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for joining us today. Please enjoy the Good Times Roll by Ray Charles, performed by the United States Army Band Brass Quintet.
Thank you.